All right, welcome to another episode of Words of the Wise. Today I have retired Chief Wiley. He has 44 years experience in law enforcement and he has been retired for the last 12 years. So a wealth of knowledge and experience, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So welcome to the show, Chief Wiley. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, I'm really looking forward to sharing your experience in law enforcement and leadership and wellness. So, thank you for your time. I was hoping we could start with a little bit of background. For anyone who doesn't know you, give us some insight into who you are and what your career looked like.
It's kind of interesting, I think. I was born and raised in Galveston, Texas. As I started my career with the Galveston Police Department, and I transitioned over to the Sheriff Department. After about 10 years there, I left and moved to South Carolina, where I was chief of police in a suburb of Charleston, Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. And after a few years there, I was offered a deputy chief's position at a higher salary with the city of Charleston. I took that and I was there for about 10 years. I moved from there to the Medical University of South Carolina, special purpose policing at the Medical University. I had college policing experience for several years. When I moved back to Texas to take the chief of police job in Denton, Texas, was there for several years and moved to Houston to be closer to relatives and family. And I was chief of police in the Houston Independent School District, which is the fourth largest school district in the country. And from there, I accepted the position of chief of police in Galveston, where I started. So my career sort of went full circle. And it was kind of pleasing to be able to go back and do that in the agency that I started in.
Mm.
So during all that time, I managed to get a master's degree from the University of South Carolina. I went to college, it seemed like all my life, part time, until I finally, at middle age, managed to get the degree that I sought, the master's degree from the University of South Carolina. Attended the FBI Academy during my career when I was in Charleston and had numerous schools and seminars throughout the years. I recall at a very young age, as a police officer, I had supervisors uh, that I didn't agree with. And I said I would do it differently if I ever became a supervisor. So I sought to become a supervisor and did, and promoted rather quickly through the ranks in all the agencies that I served in. And I was chief of police 5 different times in 5 different agencies in 2 different states. So I'm sort of pleased with the way my career turned out. I was ready to go when I finally left and retired from Galveston. And so, as you said, I've been retired now for about 12 years.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that.
Mhm.
When you and I talked offline, you told me that you have a deep passion for education and leadership. Why do you think that education is so important?
Well, I think it's important, but I also think experience is important. And combine education with experience is a no-brainer to me. Uh, you get exposed to things in an educational environment that you wouldn't be exposed to just through experience, and vice versa.
Mm.
Get exposed to things through your experience that you wouldn't get in simply an educational environment. So I think the two go hand in hand, and I think it's important both.
Yeah, when you said that, what popped in my head is a lot of times when we talk about people, we say, oh, this person's really book smart, but they don't have a lot of street smarts, or vice versa. This person has a lot of street smarts, but not really book smart. And to your point, if you can have both, then you're not a one-dimensional, right? You're a force to be reckoned with because now not only do you have that experience of being boots on the ground, that kind of street smarts, but you also have the educational book smart component of it too.
Well, it gives you, as you become a chief of police, it gives you a lot of credibility with your subordinates if you have that street experience. If you
Yeah.
don't have that, you don't get that same level and degree of credibility. And I think that's critical. You've got to have that.
Yeah. It's interesting. I didn't tell you this, but I used to be a professional skydiver in my previous life, and I trained like military skydiving. And
I've done that.
you have? I love it. And we would have some people who had no experience. It's to your point. They would come in thinking that they could teach all these things, but they didn't have the experience of teaching. And there was a certain level of I I wouldn't say disrespect, but I think everyone kind of was like, yeah, we don't really want to learn from you because you don't know. But he could figure it out. Like in his head, he understood the mechanics of what was going on because he did have that educational component and he had studied so much, but he had so little experience of actually doing the thing that no one really wanted to learn from him. So it was really interesting. I saw that firsthand. It was the people who had been in the industry for a long time that had that level of respect, and people wanted to work with them more and wanted to be led by them.
Yeah, I think that's important.
When it comes to education, how do you think that that impacts overall wellness? Do you think that that is a component of wellness in the law enforcement career?
I think it is. I think it provides a degree of confidence,
Mm,
if you will, that you wouldn't otherwise get. I think it's important. I think you feel if you're confident in your abilities and your skills and your education, uh, then you have less. You're second guess less, and you second guess yourself less. You're more confident in your ability, and others are more confident in your skills and abilities as well. So, and I think that that provides for a healthy uh, overview, oversight, healthy view of what you do day to day. You
yeah.
understand with experience, you understand what your subordinates do. With education, you can apply those things that are learned in a classroom through seeking educational a degree in your field. You can apply those things to the street and to your subordinates.
Yeah. I also think that, for me, and I don't know if you can relate to this, but you said this earlier, how you learn different things that maybe you wouldn't normally learn in your day to day. And I think that for me, the more I kind of dive into the educational components, and obviously we have different careers, but when I dive into the stats and the facts and I'm learning different things, I'm taking different trainings. I feel like it gives me different perspectives and different ways to look at things because we are so often kind of in our one track minds. You only know what you know. And if you're not in the pursuit of learning and trying to figure out different ways of doing things, different ways of teaching things, then you kind of get stuck in that one track. And so for me, I find that I'm much better at what I do when I'm diving into, and it doesn't have to be exactly in line with my career. This could be learning from other professions and, other leaders who have been successful and the things that they've done in their craft. And so I find that I'm much better at what I do in my day to day when I'm having different or the opportunity to see different perspectives.
That's a great point. As a part of my, I guess, my educational in my experience, I often sought to do things outside of my profession to associate myself with people in the community. Through civic clubs, I was a member of the Rotary Club in every place I've ever lived. I've been a member of other civic organizations as well. I've had friends, close friends, outside of law enforcement. And I think that's important because if police officers lock in to friendships and associations within their profession, they don't know necessarily what goes on in other environments, in other
Mhm.
situations. And I think that that's very important. You get to 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 have for those in the community to have your ear to listen to what they have to say and uh, I think is critically important. And that has, I think that has been a benefit to me over the years in ways that you can't hardly describe. It's pretty important, I think.
Yeah, I think it also gives you more empathy, more emotional intelligence, because now you're having to see things from a different viewpoint. And I'm not saying that you're always going to agree with every other viewpoint, but to be put in that position to think critically in that way or to try to understand maybe how someone else sees things or does things, I think just makes you more multidimensional versus, like we said, kind of that one track. And for me, the more I learn from other people and kind of immerse myself in those things, I do find that um, I feel like I have more understanding. I feel like I'm a little bit more patient. Like I think it teaches you things that you can apply to your real day-to-day life, not just your professional life. You know, it gives you different perspectives that also translate into your home life.
You've got to listen, I think.
Mhm.
I recall this often. My daughter has three boys. They're all grown now. Uh, but I recall when they were younger, I've been hard of hearing since service in Vietnam. So I've had hearing aids. But before I got the hearing aids, children were small. And my daughter would tell me often, "You're not listening to your grandchildren. You can't hear them. You need hearing aids." And I paused for a minute and I said, "Well, it's just as important, if not more important, that they listen to me and hear what I have to say than my listening to them." So that was kind of my way of bringing some humor to it. But I did ultimately get the hearing aids and still wear them to this day.
Yeah, that's so funny. You're like, well, they need to listen to me too. It's a
Yeah,
two-way street.
that's right.
So you were in leadership for a long time. You said that you were a chief for five different agencies or five times. And you told me offline that leadership was something that was really important to you. When it comes to leadership, what do you think, and this doesn't have to be one single answer, but what are some of the biggest lessons that you learned about leadership?
Well, as we mentioned just previously, listening to subordinates, participating when you can with activities that your subordinates are engaged in, including responding to some calls for service. I often would get up out of my desk, get in the car, and go out in the field and respond along with subordinate personnel to serious calls, hostage situations, and homicide scenes, things like that. You get a better understanding of what your troops are going through. I mean, I was a supervisor, an administrator, chief of police for the vast majority of my career. And if I didn't go out into the field every now and then, I'd lose touch with those things that were going on in the field. I'd lose touch with the need for technology, for new and improved ways of responding to calls for service. I remember the first patrol car that I had one radio in it, and uh, it was called one-way radio. In other words, I could talk to the dispatcher could talk to me, but I couldn't talk to other cars. That technology hadn't evolved yet. And so it did evolve. And ultimately, and today, if you get inside a patrol car, you're just overwhelmed with the technology in a patrol car. Everything from laptops to multiple channel radios, more than one radio, sirens and lights. And I mean, you name it, they've got everything in them now. And it costs more to equip a patrol car nowadays than it costs for the actual vehicle. So a patrol car nowadays, fully equipped, is pushing $100,000. So that's a lot of money. A lot
Yeah. You know, one of the things that popped into my mind when you were saying that is this idea of connectedness. And I think that we can even put this in a simple, way of thinking because I do think that it's easier to find yourself in a disconnected state than it is in a connected state. Because when you're in a connected state, it's more effort, right? It's more time. And I think about this sometimes in, relationships. Like if, I think everyone can relate to this, right? Like if you're in a relationship with somebody, a spouse, it's a lot easier to kind of ignore each other, maybe stop dating each other, maybe not, give the time and attention that you used to when you were dating and, and it was new. And it takes more time and effort to stay that way, right? You're really having to work for it. And when you said that of like, hey, like I had to get out of my seat, I had to go and take some calls for service, it would be easier to stay behind the desk. It takes more time and effort to talk to people, to listen to people, to go out and, take those calls. And so I think that's a really important reminder, whether it's in your professional life or in your personal life, how did you act when you were brand new? When you're brand new in a relationship, how did you act with that person? You were putting in all the time and effort to make that successful. How did you act when you were brand new in the career? You were wanting to do everything, and you were saying yes and you're putting this effort. And how can we maintain that over time and maintain that level of excitement and effort?
Well, you're right. And I can recall being excited about answering calls for service, about interacting with other officers when I was a patrol officer and a deputy sheriff. I can recall that I was interested in what was going on out in the field, and I was so preoccupied with that I forgot about everything else, and I focused just on that. And I think as you get older, as you move through the ranks of an agency, any agency, uh, law enforcement or otherwise, it's important to connect outside of that agency as well as inside that agency. And that's why I said what I did a minute ago about civic organizations. And uh, I can remember National Night Out. I would actually get in the car and go to as many of those events in the community as I could. I think the record was 11 different community events for National Night Out. And I saw people, a lot of them I knew, and it was important to get out there, let them see you and interact with you, ask you questions, tell you things. What's important to them, what's going on in their neighborhood, what's going on in their community, what's going on in their lives.
Yeah,
So
I
that
hear
connection is critical.
Yeah. And I do think that even today, you talked about technology. I think, you know, there's so many things that are leaving us feeling disconnected because it's so distracting. We're on our phones or, people aren't talking on the phones as much as they used to. We're not making eye contact as much as we used to. And so, to your point, how can you put in place other things that help you to find that connection again? Because, I think that as technology progresses, we're starting to feel less and less connected to each other and to the community. So
Yeah.
I agree with you. You attended the FBI National Academy, and I know
Mm.
that's something that you're really proud of and something that was instrumental for you. So tell us a little bit about that experience.
Well, I was a little bit older than most of the folks in my class at that time. I had been so focused on my career and doing things in my agency that I didn't really look for opportunity to attend the National Academy. And finally, I did. And when I went, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And there's two tracks you can take when you go to the National Academy. You can take the educational track and get college credit for that, or you can take the more traditional physical track where you engage in a lot of physical activity, a lot of exercise, that sort of thing. I chose the educational track because I wanted to enhance uh, my educational opportunities. And through that, I got credit from the University of Virginia uh, for toward my master's degree at the University of South Carolina. So it made that a little bit easier to get that master's degree by going to the FBI Academy. But in the academic track at the FBI Academy, you have a lot more classes and than what you would have otherwise. Fewer activities, more classes. And so that was important, and I enjoyed that aspect of it. Um, and it was a good networking opportunity. I still stay in touch with people I went to the National Academy with, and that was in the 80s. and I'm still in touch with some of those folks. So it's a good opportunity for anybody that ever has that opportunity to take.
Yeah. How important do you think it is to invest time and energy into professional development? I know you talked about education before, but one of the things that I hear all the time is that there's kind of this burnout phase, and it happens at different times in the career, and everyone's timeline is different. They say like 3 to 5 years, and then some people say like maybe 8 years, and then there's another one like 15 years in. Do you think that by educating yourself, by having goals, by really trying to prioritize your professional development over time, do you think that that helps with that burnout phase, or what is your opinion?
I think it does. And I think when you begin to feel burned out, it might be time to look elsewhere for opportunities. And I did that.
Yeah.
And that reinvigorates you. It makes you more interested in accomplishing things in a newer organization than what you had done in the other organization. So that's why I moved a little bit in my career. And that was intentional. And I think that that served me well.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think that sometimes you have to breathe new life into what you're doing. And sometimes it's even just a different perspective or, trying to do something a little bit different. I had someone say one time that they were feeling burnt out and they would take the same path home every day, and they decided to take a different path, and just like changing up their route to and from work helped to give them like a different perspective because it was different surroundings. And so obviously that's a bit of a simple explanation, but I think sometimes when we're in this repetitive motion and we feel like it's almost like Groundhog's Day where everything is the same, rinse and repeat every single day, you start to kind of feel that, I don't want to say boredom, but maybe that burnout a little bit. But if you can change up certain things or look for different opportunities or different assignments, or maybe just take a different route home, it can breathe new life into what you're doing. I wanted to ask you about the FBI National Academy. Was there one particular thing that stuck out that really stuck with you throughout the rest of your career and life?
I think I'm trying to think of the name of the village. They had a mock village set up where they actually did tactical exercises in that village adjacent to the National Academy. Uh, and that, to me, provided more uh, experience than what you would have got otherwise, certainly in a classroom. And you handle different types of calls for service that was
Mm.
directed by the instructors. And that was important. And I enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah.
And that was sort of innovative at the time. And since then, there have been in our business uh, more opportunities for interactive training than ever before. The shoot, don't shoot scenarios where you actually have to decide the split second to shoot or don't shoot at a screen, and they score you, they grade you. And that's pretty interesting. And it's good stuff. It really helps with the reaction for officers. The driver training has improved a lot since I first got into law enforcement. That likewise is important. In Denton, when I was chief there, we had the opportunity. We were not too far away from the Fort Worth Motor Speedway. And when it was not in use for races, we actually used that speedway to train officers in driving.
Cool.
And it was a great opportunity. And we use resources like that in the community in several different agencies that I served in. So that was important. And the officers got a chance to get outside their comfort zone, get away from a classroom, and get out and do things in the field that they perhaps would have to do later in their career.
I really like that you said get out of your comfort zone. I had someone, a friend of mine, this was a long time ago, but I was complaining about something. And I was probably 21 at the time, and I was complaining about something. And she looked me like square in the eye and she said, "You are really bad at being uncomfortable." And I was like, what? Like it really took me aback, because I guess I didn't realize in that moment like how negative I was being and how much I was complaining. And she was just like looked me square in the eye and was like, "You are really bad at being uncomfortable." And it like bothered me for a while, like I was really sitting with that and like asking like, am I actually that way? And I think I came to the conclusion that actually, yes, she was right. And I was really bad at being uncomfortable. And I think that a lot of people are. I think that we tend to stay in our bubbles of comfort, and so for you to say, hey, we were given opportunities to step out of that comfort zone and to be innovative and to try new things. And we really encouraged that. And that helped with development of our team and of the profession. I think that sometimes we have to step out of our own way. And a lot of times when we want to be in that comfort zone, it's out of fear of stepping outside because that's kind of the scary unknown, right? And I also think that we don't ever want to feel like we are new at something or like maybe we suck at something. We all want to feel like we're the best. And when you hone your craft and you feel like you're the best at something, and then someone throws you something over here that you are not good at, it takes a hit to the ego a little bit, and there's kind of fear in that. You don't want people to judge you. You don't want to, appear quote unquote weak or whatever that is. And so I really now in my life after that moment try my best. I'm not perfect at this by any means, but I try my best to embrace discomfort and I try to just suck at everything. It's like I know that sounds so counterintuitive, but I think that's the only way that you can grow. Otherwise you're kind of stagnant. Like everyone knows you're great at whatever it is that you do, but like, do you have a growth mindset? Do you have a learner's mindset? Are you willing to start at square one with something and learn to become an expert in that? And so I think that as we get older, we're less comfortable with that, but I think it's more important as we get older to continue to challenge ourselves and step out of that comfort zone.
And one of the ways that you can do that, I found, is to surround yourself with people who are subject matter experts.
Mm,
Uh, I can recall as assistant chief in Charleston, bringing people into my office, into my bureau that had expertise that we didn't have. Technology was evolving then, and I brought a guy in who had some experience with technology, with computers, and was very good at it. But he was very, very shy about it, and he didn't brag about it. But I heard about it from others, and I brought him in and I quizzed him for a few minutes, and I decided I was going to transfer him in to work with us and to upgrade our bureau, we called it back then, with technology. And he did. At that time, we had mainframe computers with dummy terminals on desk. And we were the first to get two desktop computers, Dell computers, one for me on my desk and one for my secretary. And he and people in the department began to get interested in this standalone computer and what they could do with it. And so we began to transition into standalone computers. We did away completely with the old desktops, with the old dummy computers. And the same thing with cell phones. Nowadays, everybody's got a cell phone, but back then they were mobile units. They weren't portable like they are now. They were installed in cars. And we had the first 4 or 5 cell phones installed in our cars in my bureau, which was special operations. And it began to grow. Everybody wanted a cell phone installed in their cars. And now it's insane to believe that you would find a police officer that didn't have access to a cell phone,
right.
usually in his pocket or on his hip. Uh, so, though surrounding yourself with people who are experts in their field or know a whole lot more than what you do is nothing to be ashamed of. I think it's important to do that, and I think it's a way in which you can expand your knowledge, the breadth and depth of your knowledge,
Mm,
and you can do great things for your organization as well.
yeah. I also think that, if we if we can almost switch our mindset and start to have fun learning new things, I think that that's going to help a lot because think about when we were kids. You introduce a new game or kickball or like whatever it is, and we all just had so much fun. And like we were okay with falling and, scraping our knee or losing, we would get back up and we'd still want to play. And I think that sometimes, you know, we forget that there's fun in the growth. And if you're not doing those things, if you're not surrounding yourself with people who are a lot smarter than you, and if you're not, um, open to change and advancement, you're going to be left behind, especially now. There's so much that's happening that if you're not willing to like learn and walk that way, like AI, all of the things that are happening right now, and
Oh, it's crazy.
it's crazy. I don't even know. And I feel like I mean, I'm not young by any means, but I feel like I've always been pretty much at the forefront of technology. And I think AI is advancing so fast that I'm even like, what's happening? And so, to your point, how can you surround yourself with people who are smarter than you that can help you to understand things? But then how can we also, get back to having fun in the unknown a little bit and being willing to walk that path?
And there's no shame in that. I think that
Yeah.
that's an example of leadership when you can surround yourself with people who are knowledgeable and smarter than you are,
Hmm.
and can do things you can't do
Hmm.
because you accomplish things, and they get credit for that. But you're the one that made the decision to do that, to let that happen.
Yeah.
And to me, that just makes good sense.
Yeah, it's a team sport.
Yeah, I agree.
So you have been retired now for 12 years. I know you said you're busier now than you ever were, and I'm really interested in how you can prepare proactively for a successful retirement. I speak to a lot of people about this subject, and some people are terrified to retire. They are afraid that they don't know their families anymore. Their identity is in the career, and they kind of don't know what's next, and there's, fear in that. And then I have some people that literally know the second, like to the minute and the second of when they're retiring and they can't wait and they have, all these grand plans. And so, what do you think is the key to preparing for retirement and a long and successful one at that?
Well, I think you build on those things that you have learned over your career or a lifetime. Everybody has something outside of the business world that they engage in, whether it's golf, softball league, or uh, any one of a number of things, surfing, or in my case, I enjoy being around my grandsons more when I retired because I sort of felt like I ignored them for a long time. So I looked forward to that, and that's worked out pretty well. And I'm a member of several different coffee clubs and supper clubs, and so I stay busy doing those kinds of things. Um, I do a lot of work around my house, and I enjoy that. I have a workshop in my garage. I have a man cave in my garage. I'm a cigar aficionado, so uh, you'll find me with a cigar in the evening, maybe in the man cave or maybe in the workshop. But those kinds of things keep me busy, and I enjoy it a lot. But yeah, I think that what people need to do is find those things that make their life pleasant, that make their lives better, and focus on those things, work at those things, and you'll find that you'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
Well,
One of the things that it sounds like to me that you did really well, even before you retired, was having interest outside of the career. And then when you retired, maintaining or maybe even adding to those things that you're doing. And I think the one thing that I've learned through these conversations is this idea of like, just don't stop. Not to say like, I'm not
keep
saying
moving.
don't rest or don't take care of yourself, but it's this idea of like you want to keep yourself moving. You want your body to be moving. You want to keep challenging your mind, spend time with your family, your friends, your hobbies and interests. I think that sometimes the trouble comes when you kind of sit in that chair and you don't do much. And that's where, a lot of those challenges kind of come into play.
Well, I think sitting in that chair is important too. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
doing some of that's important too.
Yeah.
But no, you've got to be active. You've got to get out and do things, and that's extremely important, especially as you get older. And none of us are getting younger, so that's good. As a veteran, I participate in some veterans organizations and veterans projects, and so I enjoy that as well. Uh, but all of us can find things that we've had interest in over our lives, and we can focus on those things in retirement that make life a little bit more enjoyable.
Yeah. I also really appreciate that, it seems to me like you look back on your career and you have a lot of pride in what you did. And you said, like, I was really pleased with my career. But then you also talk about retirement as something that you're also really pleased with, spending time with your family and, getting to do the things that you do. And I think both things can exist at one time. You can have a long and successful career and something you're proud of. And then you can also have a long and successful retirement and something you're proud of.
Yeah, yeah, and one of the things that I look at often, and a lot of people don't have it. You see it over my shoulder, those badges.
Hmm.
I wore every one of those badges. Every one of them I've worn at one time or another. And some people say, well, he couldn't hold a job. That's why he did that. He wore all those badges. But my grandsons look at that and they say, wow, that's really neat that you did that. And so they'll ask about stories, either stories when I was in the military or stories when I was in law enforcement. And there are a ton of those. So quality time with the grandkids is important.
Yeah, I love that. What words of wisdom would you share with someone who is earlier in their career? Maybe something that you wish you would have known earlier or something that helped you along the way.
I think don't take yourself too seriously. Enjoy your life, enjoy your job, enjoy your friends and your fellow workers. Step outside your comfort zone, like we talked about, and meet and greet and associate yourself with people who are not necessarily in law enforcement. While that's important, that friendship in law enforcement, it's also important that you step outside of law enforcement and meet and associate yourself with others. Civic clubs are a great way to do that. I'll never forget, I was a deputy sheriff, member Rotary Club, and one of our projects, our fundraisers, was to sell light bulbs. And I said, I can't believe that I'm going out here door to door selling light bulbs to people. And but it was kind of funny at the time. It's still funny. It's funnier now than what it was back then. Uh, but those things I think uh, make you more well-rounded, make you more, I guess, uh, less associated with just law enforcement. People come to know you as a person rather than a police officer. That's important.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you for your time. I really appreciate you coming on here and spending some time with me today and sharing your insights and your wisdom. That is all I have for you, but if there's anything I missed, anything you want to add, I'll let you take the floor.
No, pretty well. I mean, we could talk about stories all day long.
I
You
know.
don't have time for that. But no, I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.